Okay, here we are back again with more Dragon Age Origins, and we have a lot of codex to go through, so I think we're gonna do that. Let's do some codex, guys. So here's some creature codexes. A good one on abominations. We arrived in the dead of night. We had been tracking the Maleficar for days, and finally had him cornered, or so we thought. As we approached, a home on the edge of the town exploded, sending splinters of wood and fist-sized chunks of rocks into our ranks. We had but moments to regroup before fire rained from the sky, the sounds of destruction wrapped in a hideous laughter from the center of the village. There, perched atop the spire of the village chantry, stood the mage, but he was human no longer. We shouted prayers to the Maker and deflected what magic we could, but as we fought, the creature fought harder. I saw my comrades fall, burned by the flaming sky or crushed by debris, the monstrous creature, looking as if a demon were wearing a man like a twisted suit of skin, spotted me and grinned. We had forced it to this, I realized. The mage had made this pact, given himself over to the demon to survive our assault. Transcribed from a tale told by a former Templar in Cumberland, 884 Blessed. It is known that mages are able to walk the Fade while completely aware of their surroundings, unlike most others who may only enter the realm as dreamers and leave it scarcely aware of their experience. Demons are drawn to mages, though whether it is because of this awareness or simply by virtue of their magical power in our world is unknown. Regardless of the reason, a demon always attempts to possess a mage when it encounters one, by force, or by making some kind of deal, depending on the strength of the mage. Should the demon get the upper hand, the result is an unholy union known as an abomination. Abominations have been responsible for some of the worst cataclysms in history, and the notion that some mage in a remote tower could turn into such a creature unbeknownst to any was the driving force behind the creation of the Circle of Magi. Thankfully, abominations are rare. The Circle has methods for weeding out those who are too at risk for demonic possession, and scant few mages would give up their free will to submit to such a bond with a demon. But once an abomination is created, it will do its best to create more. Considering that entire squads of Templars have been known to fall at the hands of a single abomination, it is not surprising that the Chantry takes the business of the Circle of Magi very serious indeed. Fair enough. Arcane Horror. We have fought a couple of these as well. Upon ascending to the second floor of the tower, we were greeted by a gruesome sight, a ragged collection of bones wearing the robes of one of the senior enchanters. I had known her for years, watched her raise countless apprentices, and now she was a mere puppet for some demon. Transcribed from a tale told by a Templar in Antiva City, 713 Storm. Demons, of course, have no form in our world. When they enter, either where the veil is particularly thin or through blood magic summoning, they must take possession of a body. When a pride demon takes control of the corpse of a mage, an arcane horror is born. Although they appear to be little more than bones, these are fierce creatures, possessing not only all the spellcasting abilities of a living mage, but also the capacity to heal and even command other animated corpses. Nice. Ashwraiths. Legend has it that when Andraste's ashes were taken into hiding, some of her closest disciples gave themselves to the fire, that their restless souls might remain to guard her final resting place forever. Whether they are the spirits of Andraste's disciples or merely Fade spirits, the temple that houses the sacred urn is filled with wraiths. We'll probably get there eventually. Created from a burnt corpse, an Ashwraith is a powerful and amorphous opponent able to lash and smother while being immune to most physical attacks. Even if successfully dispersed, it can reform at a later time. Magic is the only real way to fight such a creature, wind and ice attacks being the most useful. They are capable of creating small whirlwinds that are devastating to anyone unfortunate enough to get close, and their touch leaves a person drained. Corpse. To anyone who doubts the wickedness of blood magic, I say, with your own hands, strike down the corpses of your own brothers who have fallen in battle to a Maleficar, then we may discuss morality. Knight Commander Benedictus in a letter to the Divine, 546 Exalted. The walking dead are not, as the superstitious are wont to believe, the living come back for revenge. They are, rather, corpses possessed by demons. The shambling corpse, controlled by a demon of sloth, causes its enemies to become weak and fatigued. Corpses possessed by rage demons go berserk and simply wade into their opponents mindlessly. Devouring corpses are held by hunger demons and feed upon the living. The more powerful demons rarely deign to possess a dead host. Desire Demon. In all my studies, I must say that the most intriguing was my interview with the Desire Demon. That the creature was willing to speak with me was a sign that this was no mere monster, mindlessly driven by its nature, but rather a rational being as interested in me as I was in it. It took a form that I would call female, though I had no doubt that it could appear otherwise. I wondered if it appeared as it did because I wanted it to, or because I expected it to. She, and indeed I could only think of her as such now, smiled warmly at me and laughed a musical sound that seemed to thrill my old heart. So frightened was I of this creature's legendary abilities to twist the hearts of men, and so relieved was I when I looked across the table into her dark eyes. This was a fearsome creature of the Fade, but as I spoke with her, I slowly came to realize that this demon was merely as misunderstood as we mages are ourselves. From the journal of former senior enchanter Malleus, once of the Circle of Rivane, declared apostate in 920 Dragon. Of all the threats from beyond the veil, few are more insidious and deceptively deadly than the Desire Demon. In folklore, such demons are characterized as peddlers of lust, luring their prey into a sexual encounter only to be slain at the culmination. While a desire demon can indeed deal in pleasure, in truth they deal with any manner of desire that humans can possess, wealth, power, and beauty, to name a few. Far more intelligent than the bestial hunger and rage demons, and more ambitious than the demons of sloth, these dark spirits are among the most skilled at tempting mages into possession. Many who serve the whims of a desire demon never realize it. They are manipulated by illusions and deceit, if not outright mind control, although these demons are reluctant to resort to such crude measures. Instead, they seem to take great pleasure in corruption. The greater the deceit, the greater their victory. Only demons of pride prove more fearsome opponents when roused. Their abilities to affect the mind allow them to assume disguises and even alter the environment to their purpose, not to mention the great strength and speed they possess if they should have to resort to more physical means. Most often, a desire demon will attempt to bargain its way to freedom if overpowered. Many stories exist that depict mages defeating desire demons to the point where a wish can be wrested from them. It should be noted that in such stories, the demon almost always gets the upper hand, even when the mage thinks his wish has been granted. Basically, never do a deal with a demon, and especially never do a deal with a desire demon. Though I do kind of wish they had given them slightly different appearances. I understand the really heavy-handed imagery of the Desire Demon being a nearly nude kind of sexual creature that looks female with big boobs and whatever, but at the same time it's like, it's a little heavy-handed. They could have done something a little subtler and gotten their point across just as well, but that's just me. And I also like the idea that, like, and I understand why they probably couldn't do this, but the idea that, like, a desire demon can take on the form of whatever you want the most, so to speak. So, theoretically, it could look like anything. And I kind of wish they had gotten that across a little better, too. But yeah. Like the idea that the desire demon that we encountered in Shale's quest took the form of a cat, right? Because that's what that little girl wanted most in the world, was a cat. So the desire demon became a cat. And I kind of wish that we had more like that, where, like, they show up and they're in different forms. Yeah. Anyway, moving on. Dragon. There's going to be several different forms of dragons, but for now we just have the Dragonling entry. Newly hatched dragons are roughly the size of a deer and voraciously hungry. They live for a short time in their mother's lair before venturing out on their own. The slender, wingless creatures are born in vast numbers, as only a few ever make it to adulthood. Fair enough. A ghoul. What the blight does not destroy, it corrupts. Any creature infected with the darkspawn taint that does not have the good fortune to die outright becomes a ghoul, a twisted shadow of itself. The name originally comes from men, whether human, dwarven, or elven, who became tainted, usually while being held as a captive food source by the darkspawn. They would turn cannibal, preying on other captives, slaves to the will of the archdemon, driven mad by pain. During a blight, the corruption of the darkspawn spreads through the wilder areas of Thedas and infects the animals found there. This produces grotesque, enraged bears called bearscarn, as well as blight wolves. Fortunately, ghouls rarely survive their corruption for long. And here's an entry on golems, which is, of course, what shale is. Once a crucial part of Orzammar's defenses, golems have all but vanished as the secret to their manufacture was lost over 1,000 years ago. What few golems remain are guarded closely by the Shaperit, brought out when the battle with the Darkspawn grows desperate enough to risk their loss. No one now would sell a golem for any price, but in ancient times, dwarves sold many golems to the Magister Lords of Tevinter. They are devastating weapons in war, living siege engines capable of hurling boulders like a catapult or plowing through enemy lines like an earthquake. Pride demons. Let me explain what it is to face a pride demon, my friends. You may scoff and say that our talents exist only to face mages, but you will encounter demons often. They will be summoned by a Maleficar and bound to do his bidding, and while at times they will be forced into the possession of a host, they will also face you in their true form, a powerful opponent indeed. Do not underestimate it. Pride is powerful and intelligent. When we have encountered one in its true form, its most common attacks are bolts of fire and ice. Fire they will use to burn an opponent, and the magical flame will combust anything you wear, regardless of make. Ice they will use to freeze an opponent in place. Be cautious, for they enjoy employing this against warriors in particular. More than one group of Templars has made the mistake of attempting to overwhelm a pride demon and suffered the consequences, believe me. And if you think that having the aid of other mages will assist you, you are wrong. Pride demons can render themselves immune to magic for short times, and are adept at dispelling magic that is cast upon you, as much as we Templars are able to disrupt spells. Think on that for a moment, my friends. Be wary of how prideful you become, lest you find too much in common with such a fiend. Transcript of a lecture given by Varen, Templar Commander of Tantervale, 686 Steel. A rat. What are you, mad? Even the most giant of rats isn't going to present that much of a problem to anyone larger than a cat. Even the stories in the archives that tell of blight-touched rats still only attributed them with the ability to spread the plague. The rats themselves got no larger than perhaps 3 feet in length, covered in sharp bony spikes and boils. Disturbing, certainly, but dangerous? This is no fantasy conjured by madmen, young man. You have much more important creatures to concern yourself with. Transcript of a lecture given by Nalia, Senior Enchanter of Hosberg, 844 Blessed. Note, she was later eaten by a blight rat in 846 Blessed. Okay, fair enough, so I guess we shouldn't discount the danger of rats. Revenant. So this is the thing that we fought in the chantry, in the chapel, at the circle. We summoned it and fought it, the big guy with the sword. An entire unit of men, all slain by one creature. I didn't believe it at first, your perfection, but it appears that this is so. We have a survivor, and while at first I thought his rantings pure exaggeration, it appears to be no simple skeleton. The descriptions of the creature's abilities were eerily similar to those our brothers at Marnus Pell encountered almost a century ago. Men pulled through the air to skewer themselves on the creature's blade, and attacks so quick that it was able to assault multiple opponents at once. No, your perfection, what we have here is indeed a revenant, and nothing less. From a letter to Divine Amara III, 571 Exalted. A revenant is a corpse possessed by a demon of pride or of desire, making it amongst the most powerful possessed opponents that one can face. Many possess spells, but most are armed and armored and prefer the use of their martial talents. They are weak against physical attacks but regenerate quickly and commonly use telekinesis to pull opponents into melee range should they try to flee. Revenants also have the ability to strike multiple opponents surrounding them. Stay at range if possible and strike quickly. That is the only way to take such a creature down. That's good information to know because something tells me we will be encountering several more Revenants by the end of the game. And last, in our creatures overview, we come to the skeleton. The demons of the Fade are jealous of the living beings they sense from across the veil. They constantly push against the boundaries of the Fade, and when they finally cross over, they attempt to possess the first living creature they see. They are unable, however, to distinguish that which was once living from that which still is. In fact, a corpse provides an even more tempting target to a weaker demon, as it has no will with which to resist the possession. The demon cannot rationalize why this is so. It only sees a target and grasps at the opportunity. A skeleton is exactly that, a corpse animated by a possessing demon. Upon finding itself trapped within a body that cannot sustain it, the demon is driven insane. It seeks to destroy any life that it encounters, attacking without thought to its own welfare. The exact names given to skeletons of this type vary according to the nature of the demon that possesses it. A fanged skeleton is a skeleton possessed by a hunger demon. These skeletons devour whatever life they encounter and often possess the ability to drain life energy and mana from their victims. A shambling skeleton is a slower-moving skeleton possessed by a sloth demon, able to bring entropic powers against its opponents, slowing them and even putting them to sleep. More powerful demons have been known to command skeletons, but at that level they are known by other names, Revenants and Arcane Horrors, to name two. Alright, we have some items. We know about the Litany of Adralla, but we can read a little bit more detail about what it is and where it comes from here, too. Adralla of Varantium dedicated her life to the study of blood magic, the academic study rather than the practice. A deeply pious mage, she was renowned in her day for having found a counter to every form of mind control, a defense against dreamwalkers, and even counterspells to demonic summons. Her efforts went unappreciated in her native Tevinter, however. After 3 different magisters attempted to have her killed, she fled the country, choosing to take refuge in the land of Blessed Andraste's birth. She spent the remainder of her days with the Circle in Ferelden. The Litany of Adralla disrupts the casting of mind control spells. Use the litany whenever a creature tries to dominate another with magic, and it will interrupt the casting. Once the spell is in effect and a character is under a blood mage's power, it is too late. So that's the item that we use to fight Uldred in the Circle. Eusaris, the Dragon Slayer. Eusaris is the great sword that we have sitting in our inventory. So it's just a great sword that we picked up. In the company of monsters he went, down the empty wolf roads after the dragon to the lands where the ice is like steel, and the air grows thin as a beggar, and every rocky path is strewn with the bones of the lonely dead. There Dane dwelled, and 50 swords were worn to rusted ruin before at last they found the cave of Fenshal, ancient keeper of the mountains, bane of wolves. Dane sought a way in which the dragon might be felled. Fiend of fire and talon, its scales brighter than any warrior's mail, teeth greater than men, and all around the slumbering worm were bones. Wolves, men, beasts beyond counting. The fume of death frightened even the wolf pack, and Dane, desperate, crept into the cavern to seek the monster's death alone. There, shining among the dead like a star, his hand found a sword, Eusaris, forged by the dwarf smiths for an Alamari lord long ago, waiting age after age to be taken to battle once more. And this Dane freed from the earth and struck at the eye of the dragon, still sleeping, with a swift, terrible blow. And Fenshal woke, wroth, only to die. From Dane and the Werewolf. The legend of the blade Eusaris predates Andraste. The sword that Dane found in the dragon's treasure hoard, which he used to slay both Fenshal and the werewolf, was passed on to his son Hafter. Dane may have been fiction, but Hafter was fact. In 140 Divine, he led the Alamari tribes against Darkspawn that flooded into the Ferelden Valley from the Dwarven lands. He not only drove back the horde, he also then defeated the combined forces of the Avars and Chased who hoped to take advantage of the chaos. His victories earned him such respect from the tribes, he was named the First Tairn. After years of ruling the valley in peace, it is said that Hafter left Ferelden, sailing into the unknown east of the Amaranthine Ocean with the blade still in hand, never to be seen again. Ooh, cool. Magic and religion stuff. Alright, this is some of my favorite stuff. Here's an entry on lyrium, which is, of course, the substance that we use as a mage a lot to supplement our mana. More than half the wealth of Orzammar comes from a single, extremely rare substance, lyrium. The Chantry believes it to be the waters of the Fade mentioned in the Canticle of Threnodies, the very stuff of creation itself, from whence the Maker fashioned the world. Only a handful of mining caste families hazard extracting the ore, finding veins in the stone quite literally by ear. For in its raw form, lyrium sings, and the discerning can hear the sound even through solid rock. Even though dwarves have a natural resistance, raw lyrium is dangerous for all but the most experienced of the mining caste to handle. Even for dwarves, exposure to the unprocessed mineral can cause deafness or memory loss. For humans and elves, direct contact with lyrium ore produces nausea, blistering of the skin, and dementia. Mages cannot even approach unprocessed lyrium. Doing so is invariably fatal. Despite its dangers, lyrium is the single most valuable mineral currently known. In the Tevinter Imperium, it has been known to command a higher price than diamond. The dwarves sell very little of the processed mineral to the surface, giving the greater portion of what they mine to their own smiths, who use it in the forging of all truly superior dwarven weapons and armor. What processed lyrium is sold on the surface goes only to the Chantry, who strictly control the supply. From the Chantry, it is dispensed both to the Templars, who make use of it in tracking and fighting Maleficarum, and to the Circle. In the hands of the Circle, lyrium reaches its fullest potential. Their Formari craftsmen transform it into an array of useful items from the practical, such as magically hardened stone for construction, to the legendary silver armor of King Calenhad. When mixed into liquid and ingested, lyrium allows mages to enter the Fade fully aware, unlike all others who reach it only while dreaming. Such potions can also be used to aid in the casting of especially taxing spells, for a short time granting a mage far greater power than he normally wields. Lyrium has its costs, however. Prolonged use becomes addictive, the cravings unbearable. Over time, Templars grow disoriented, incapable of distinguishing memory from present or dream from waking. They frequently become paranoid, as their worst memories and nightmares haunt their waking hours. Mages have additionally been known to suffer physical mutation. The Magister Lords of the Tevinter Imperium were widely reputed to have been so affected by their years of lyrium use that they could not be recognized by their own kin, nor even as creatures that had once been human. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar by Brother Genitivi. And here's one on the Tranquil. Of course, the Tranquil guy in the Circle, who was kind of our friend and helped us out a little bit. The Tranquil are the least understood but most visible members of the Circle. Every city of respectable size boasts a Circle of Magi shop, and every one of these shops is run by a Tranquil proprietor. The name is a misnomer, for they are not tranquil at all. Rather, they are like inanimate objects that speak. If a table wished to sell you an enchanted penknife, it could pass as one of these people. Their eyes are expressionless, their voices monotone. Incomparable craftsmen they might be, but they are hardly the sort of mages to put ordinary folk at ease. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar by Brother Genitivi. Although apprentices do not know the nature of the harrowing, all of them understand its consequences. They either pass and become full mages, or they are never seen again. Those who fear to undertake this rite of passage, or those who are deemed too weak or unstable, are given the rite of tranquility instead. The actual procedure, like the harrowing, is secret, but the results are just as well known. The rite severs connection to the Fade. The Tranquil, therefore, do not dream. This removes the greatest danger that threatens a weak or unprepared mage, the potential to attract demons across the veil. But this is the least of Tranquility's effects, for the absence of dreams brings with it the end of all magical ability as well as all emotion. The Tranquil, ironically, resemble sleepwalkers, never entirely awake nor asleep. They are still part of our circle, however, and some might say they are the most critical part. They have incredible powers of concentration, for it is simply impossible to distract a tranquil mage, and this makes them capable of becoming craftsmen of such skill that they rival even the adeptness of the dwarves. The Formari, the branch of the circle devoted to item enchantment, is made up exclusively of tranquil, and is the source of all the wealth that sustains our towers. From On Tranquility and the Role of the Fade in Human Society by First Enchanter Josephus. I might have read that before. Sometimes Codex entries get sort of updated with more information as you go along, especially the character ones. The one on the Veil. I also feel like I've read this one before too. I might be wrong. I detest this notion that the veil is some manner of invisible curtain that separates the world of the living from the world of the spirits, whether it be called the Fade or the Beyond, is a matter of racial politics I refuse to indulge in at the moment. There is no this side and that side when it comes to the veil. One cannot think of it as a physical thing, or a barrier, or even a shimmering wall of holy light. Thank you very much for that image, Your Perfection. Think of the veil instead as opening one's eyes. Before you opened them, you saw our world as you see it now. Static, solid, unchanging. Now that they are open, you see our world as the spirits see it. Chaotic, ever-changing, a realm where the imagined and the remembered have as much substance as that which is real. More, in fact. A spirit sees everything as defined by will and memory, and this is why they are so very lost when they cross the veil. In our world, imagination has no substance. Objects exist independently of how we remember them or what emotions we associate with them. Mages alone possess the power to change the world with their minds, and perhaps this forms the nature of a demon's attraction to them. Who can say? Regardless, the act of passing through the veil is much more about changing one's perceptions than a physical transition. The veil is an idea. It is the act of transition itself, and it is only the fact that both living beings and spirits find the transition difficult that gives the veil any credence as a physical barrier at all. From a dissertation on the Fade as a Physical Manifestation by Marino, Senior Enchanter of the Minrathous Circle of Magi, 655 Steel. Alright, that is about as far as I can go now in the time that we have, so we'll pick it up next time, do a little more Codex, possibly. As always, if you like what you see, please like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next episode. Later!